Hi everybody, welcome to Chapter 16, Organization Change and Change Management. Every organization goes through change, and there are many agents that cause or direct that organizational change. The first is people. The population of an organization is going to cause it to change sometimes. There may be more diverse population than the organization has had previously. The age may change. The baby boomers may all be growing up and maybe retiring. There's a new millennial workforce in place. Whatever the fact, as the organization's people and the demographics of the people within it change, the organization needs to keep up with it. The second agent of organizational change is technology. And this is the same. As technology increases, the organization needs to keep up with those technological change and make new advancements in order to provide an effective product for people using all the technology at their disposal. The third agent of organizational change is information processing. This is both information coming into the organization as well as leaving the organization. One interesting factor about this mentioned in our text is the increase of social media affecting organizations, and the fact that that is one of the inputs that organizations use, which is something you couldn't have imagined 10 years ago, that they would be looking at Facebook and Instagram and what people are saying around the world about their product, and that can cause them to change things. Finally, there's competition. If the company down the street that is selling the same product that you are changes their product and suddenly the products are flying off the shelves, you are going to have to change in order to keep up. This is just a worker at a place, and she is adapting to change. Instead of changing the inbox and the outbox, she is just raising up her chair a little higher. All right. Organizations sometimes decide we're going to change, and so there are some processes in place to describe planned change. The first is LUO's process model. The second is the continuous change process model. First, we're going to look at LUO's. LUO's process of organization structure is very simple. There's an old state. You realize things aren't working. You need to unfreeze that. It's almost like imagine it melting. Then you're going to change. You're going to decide new ways of doing things differently than you did before. And then once you have things the way you like it, you're going to refreeze them into a permanent state. And then this becomes the new way of doing business. This is a fairly simplistic model. It's kind of good to describe, but it doesn't really work in day-to-day business. The model that works better is the continuous change process model. There's a force for change. There's a problem. We have a process where we solve the problem. You can see in the center those agents for change that we talked about in the beginning. Those cause us to implement a change, and then we measure and evaluate and control. Now, it's important to keep in mind that organizations are constantly changing, so there may be 4 or 5 of these scenarios going on at a time in an organization in order to keep it current. Organizational development is a system-wide application of behavioral science knowledge to the planned development and reinforcement of organizational strategies, structures, and processes for improving an organization's effectiveness. What this means is we've studied what works and we're going to apply it to our organization. And it is important to know this isn't just about tech practices, but it's about people and business practices and the things that have been studied that work. Okay, so let's look at the types of organizational development. There are 2 main types. There is a system-wide development, and then there is a tech or a task redesign. The system-wide organizational development affects 2 things. The first is structural. This is something that is company-wide. There is a need for a change that noticed. And 2 examples that I have to help us make sense of this. First is an automobile manufacturer who realizes that the country is going green and that their big gas-guzzling cars and trucks are not selling as well, so they need to look at more energy-efficient models. So this starts at the design process and goes all the way down through the sales floor and to the mechanics who are working on those cars. So this is a development of change that would affect the entire organization. Another example is a cell phone company. If AT&T finds out that Verizon has a brand new development and something that is flying off the shelves, they are going to implement some system-wide changes so that they can also have the next greatest thing and compete. The second aspect of system-wide organizational development is the quality of work life, and this is very important for companies. Walton's has categorized these 8 factors of the quality of life that organizations need to look at in order to keep their employees motivated, satisfied, and healthy, and that will in turn improve the effectiveness of the organization. Finally, there is a task or a tech redesign, which means what are we doing and we need to do things differently, or what are we using technology-wise, we need to make improvements. So there are 9 steps in our text that they go through. We recognize the change, we look at some possibilities, we diagnose all of the aspects of our company that would affect. We do a cost-benefit analysis. Are we going to do it or are we not going to do it? Then we make a strategy, implement it, implement any changes that result from the redesign, and then evaluate the task. And this is something that can happen over and over in organizations, but they need to have a plan before they implement changes that are this big. Next are changes that involve people. The first is individual change. People are going to be trained to be in new jobs or positions. There may be personal development that you may want some assertiveness training, or you may want sensitivity training. There may be people who are going through management training, and they may do role playing in order to find out how to be an effective manager. One thing that is vital at this point is to teach people about working in other countries and working virtually. The second aspect of change involving people is group change, which involves team building and diversity training. Diversity training that we've talked about earlier, as far as individuals, this is just helping them to be more culturally aware as a group. And then the second is team building. If you can get people working together as a team and thinking of each other as people, it's going to increase trust, it's going to increase motivation, it's going to help them to work better, and it's going to be better for your organization. I teach college students, and this is a team building activity that we did that was very successful. They were instructed to build spaghetti marshmallow teams. They had 20 minutes, and they had to come up with a structural design and then work together as a team to have the tallest possible structure with a big marshmallow on top. It was so informative for them and so interesting and a great lesson as far as critical thinking and teamwork, and looking who would be the ones who would take over and who would be the ones who would have good ideas. It was a great idea. Okay, we've looked at all this change, and here's a quote from John Maxwell. Change is inevitable, but growth is optional. Well, why would growth be optional? Because people don't always want to change. Employees are resistant to change, but also management is resistant to change. Let's look at some of the ways that people are resistant to change. Here are 5 of the resistances that it talks about in our text. The first is habit. I'm going to do it this way because we've always done it this way. The second is security. I like doing it this way because I know exactly what to expect. The third is economic factors. I don't know if I want to change because how is this going to affect my pocketbook if we change to a 4-day work week instead of a 5-day work week? Or if we start opening our store earlier. The economy is very important to me. Next, fear of the unknown. Well, we've never done it this way, and I don't know how this is going to affect us or if it's really going to work. Finally is the social factor. I'm not sure if I want to do this because what are other people going to think, because this is a different way than it's always been done. These are all resistances on the part of employees and on management to change. Let's look at these keys. Organizations know that change is going to happen and they need to be proactive about it. So here are 7 keys to manage that change. First, keep a holistic view. Look at the whole organization. Second, consider global. Look at what is working in other places, in other organizations. Third, start small. Begin to implement change small. Evaluate and see if that change is working. Next, secure management support. One division can't just decide that they're going to change things unless they have the support of the management above them. Next, encourage participation. It's best for an organization manager to not just come down and say, hey, this is the way we're going to do it, but to get people involved, get their ideas, and encourage them to participate. Next, along those same lines, is communicate. Tell people what to expect. Tell them, here's the basic plan, and here's what you can expect along the way, and here's what we need from you. Finally, reward employees for embracing change and let them know that you appreciate both their input and their involvement. Finally, learning organizations. This is a term that is interesting, and it's one that every organization wants to be a learning organization. They're never static. They never say, okay, we've arrived and this is how we are. It is an organization that facilitates learning of all the members and continually transforms itself. They're always changing. In a learning organization, learning and change become part of the culture. So my question for you, class, is take the assessment and find out what is your tolerance for ambiguity and your results. Are you resistant or amenable to change? And then secondly, describe an organizational change or restructure you've experienced during your time in the workforce. Can you suggest any ways it could have been handled better? Thank you for your time, and I look forward to hearing your responses.